Advisory session, and we are going to go right into our 3 o'clock public hearing. New York Cancer and Blood Specialist Core Preservation Area Hardship Waiver Application. Okay, at this time, I think do we go to Ms. Hargrave or do we open it up?
No, you can.
You have to read the hearing note?
Yeah, we start taking.
Did I not read the whole thing?
And the record.
That's fine.
The record's gonna
That's
reflect.
sufficient. That's sufficient.
Notice. Do you have the notice?
Oh, I read it.
We could have her just enter into the record, right? It's been in reading the whole thing?
We're good. Do the
We're good?
appearance. Do you have all the appearances?
Well, they
We
can
have it.
stay on the record.
We have it. Oh, yeah. So then we have it down, so then Julie can start.
Okay, Ms. Hargrave?
Okay, good afternoon. So we have the New York Cancer and Blood Specialist Core Preservation Area Hardship Waiver. This is a site in Ridge in the town of Brookhaven. Yeah, I'll take that, please. Doesn't advance like that, maybe? Can you just scroll down to this map, please? That's all I need to have, just displayed the map. Okay. Excuse me, thank you for your patience. So just to go through the staff report, it's been distributed to the commission, and there are a number of exhibits, and we have another exhibit to add, if you agree. So again, this is in the town of Brookhaven in the core preservation area on the west side of William Floyd Parkway, north of the Long Island Expressway. It's an isolated site, 5 acres in on the west side of the road. And can you go to the aerial, an aerial that shows the, yeah, that's great. Okay. And this is an industrially zoned site. It's developed with a non-residential use, a commercial use, a medical facility. The current owner acquired the property last year in 2022. The building is existing building is 45,000 square feet with a 31,000 square foot footprint. And there are 165 parking spaces presently. Part of the area is naturally wooded, mainly along the roadside, and then an area of trees with mowed grass underneath, and landscaped islands exist in the site. There are 12 or so land bank parking spaces that have already been developed with a gravel surface. Those are going to be finalized in this project. So the proposal is to remove approximately 1/4 acre of natural vegetation and landscaped area to build additional parking for 34 parking spaces. So this would require cutting trees, existing trees, and again, the understory of this area where the trees exist is mowed grass. And part of that area was previously restored under a prior hardship. This project site has been the subject of 2 prior hardships in the past, one in 1994 to expand the building, and one in 2010 to expand the building and expand the parking available on the site. The building was about 12,000 square feet when it was originally built in the late 70s. But again, it's been expanded a couple times since then, up to 45,000 square feet now. In the 2010 hardship, the commission required covenants to preserve and restore some of the area as natural vegetation, and again, restore some of the area that is proposed to be developed at this time. If you could, Angie, scroll down to the other wider image that shows the study area. This, again, the study area shows, so an exhibit, let me just go to that, exhibit E. It's an aerial of the site with a study area radius showing the, like that. with Brookhaven National Lab is east of the site, on the east side of William Floyd Parkway. To the north is a residential development in the core preservation area, and the site is surrounded by public land owned by New York State and Suffolk County. Yeah, that's the one, if you could zoom in, please, thank you. So I'll just go to the end of the staff report. We have a number of items for your consideration and discussion. Again, the parking lot, the parking that is proposed now will, to satisfy this, present use of the property, the parking situation will continue to be deficient by over 100 spaces. This building is of a large size, and the use that is occurring there, the parking demand is greater than the supply. So they need.
They treat patients with cancer.
But it's better directed to the applicant.
Yeah,
We don't know.
we would like to get some clarification on what's occurring in this building, if this is a patient facility, or if it's some kind of just offices, or a combination of both. So again, this use is demanding more parking, and even with this expansion of a parking lot on this property, it will be over 100 spaces, lacking what is really needed for a building of this size in accordance with the town code. Town code requires 1 space per 150 square feet, and the building, again, is 35,000 square feet. So that is something to consider, if this will be enough for this use, or if there will be additional issues in the future for parking. Again, the owner purchased the site last year, and we have a discussion item for you to consider that, if this is self-created, knowing that this was in the core, knowing this site has been the subject of 2 hardships already in the past, and that it is limited in terms of the amount of additional parking that can even be developed on this site due to the size of the site. The site has a beneficial use of the office that's occurring there now, and this would be an increase in intensity of use on a site in the core. And again, development in the core is prohibited without a hardship. This is why they're here for you, in front of you today. And the site has been the subject of 2 prior hardships. There was a covenant to protect part of the site to remain natural. That would have to be potentially amended, or that would be undone in part by this project. And we have a question of whether the use is in conformance with Article 6. If there is such a demand on this property, whatever is occurring in the building, if that is increasing a need for additional sanitary flow, or if it is in conformance. The 2010 hardship required the redemption of not Pine Barrens credits, but transfer of development rights, because the sewage flow, when the building was increased in size in the last hardship, it facilitated the need for more sanitary flow to be generated. So that, and since it wasn't consistent with the Pine Barrens Act to land Pine Barrens credits in the core, it's a place where core credits are sent out from, they had to purchase development rights from some other program. So that is about all I have for now. And again, I'll just go through the exhibits. We have there's a location map, the site plan of the site showing the existing conditions, the existing building, and parking lot configuration. Photographs of the site showing the area that will be cleared and disturbed for this project, in the front southerly lawn south of the building. And the prior hardships in '94 and in 2010, and the plans associated with those projects, and the study area map, and the applicant's demonstration of hardship. We were proposing to add an additional exhibit. The applicant submitted yesterday a restoration plan for the front area that will remain undeveloped, and So we were going to add that as an additional exhibit, and I'll distribute that to you. So I think and the applicant's here to make a presentation as well.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hargrave. Is there any questions for Ms. Hargrave before I let her go? Okay, if the applicant or their representative is here, please come forward and introduce yourselves, and we'll ask you keep your presentation brief.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Clarko, Chairman Clarko, members of the commission, J. Timothy Shea Jr., Sir Tillman Ballin, 100 Motor Parkway, Hapog, New York, for the applicant. I'm joined by the gray-haired man sitting there in the second row, Chick Voorhees, who will do most of the factual presentation with regard to the site conditions and the hardship application itself. I would just like to start with some background and to answer some of the questions that were raised by Ms. Hargrave. The site was initially developed in 1979 prior to enactment of the Pine Barrens Act. The prior owners, which was American Physical Society, in 1994, and possibly before, but we found one letter from 1994, made application both to the county to change the physical boundaries of the core preservation area based on the fact that their site was already developed. And then, failing that, made an application to Pine Barrens for a hardship to allow for additional building area on the site. The letter points out in specific language that they are anticipating growth for the site. And this put everyone on notice from the beginning that this site was not really compatible with the finding that it was put in the core. In that letter, it was pointed out that as far back as 1994, there were plans to expand the site for growth of their business. This is when the first hardship was granted. The second hardship noted by Ms. Hargrave was in 2010, where the town and the Pine Barrens approved to increase the size of the building pursuant to certain dicta that was in the 94 decision, indicating that such should be on the second story of the building and not enlarge the footprint. But this did not consider completely the potential for growth of the company that was there at the time, or for any company that may occupy the site in the future. We understand that there is a delicate balance to these type of applications, and that at the time, I'm sure all of those factors were taken into consideration. However, businesses either grow or they downsize or collapse. When you grow, you have additional employees that will fill the office space. By improving the office space with the capacity that it had, left open for that. Or you downsize and sell. What happened with American Physician Society, that downsized, they sold the building to our client, Ascend, who is the real estate partner of New York Blood and Cancer. And as an aside, this is not used for medical visits. This site is their operations center, offices, and all administrative type uses. Therefore, it meets all of the Article 6 standards from the health department from the prior approvals, in that it's going from office to office and not office to medical office. So they decided to sell the asset. In this case, like I said, eventually a business was going to occupy this site, given the available space and basic economics, and was going to have a need for additional parking. Whether it was our client, American Physical Society, or some other company. Given the size of the building, this cost of buying a building, the economics, this was inevitable. And this relates back to the original decision to include a developed property in the core. So this hardship is not one that's based upon our client's actions. You got to look back all the way through the history of the property. Furthermore, we don't believe that it says here this is not a compatible growth hardship where you have to show that the hardship wasn't self-created, but we're providing that information to the commission regardless. Staff also asked to consider the 2 prior reliefs granted when assessing this application. However, the fact that there were prior reliefs granted is not material, and it's not something that the commission should consider in connection with this particular application. The question is whether this applicant, in this application, meets the test for the hardship. Staff also conflates the prior applications with this applications for assessing the minimum relief required. The minimum relief required request is based upon current conditions, the current owner, and the current application, not upon past history. And there's nothing within the Pine Barrens Act that limits in any way, shape, or form the amount of reliefs that a property can be granted on it. So you can grant this without violating any of the provisions of the Pine Barrens Act with regard to the number of reliefs. I have handed up 3 exhibits, one of which was the letter from 1994 from American Physical Society, which I highlighted the areas where they talk about growth. I've also handed up a picture of the site prior to its most recent reconfiguration, which I believe Mr. Milazzo is going to hand around.
So Tim, take 1 second.
Yes,
So that-
absolutely.
You can, those are those. Yeah, you can mark them. I have one more.
Yeah, one more.
You can just call the, here, NYCB, 1, 2, and 3.
This is something to do.
There's 3 things.
Yes,
So we'll make the map 1, Tim, the picture 2, and the letter 3.
okay, thank you.
And the picture's 2, and the letter will be 3. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So, in looking at the picture, which is, oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Just give me the green light. Sorry about that.
For hours.
No, that they submitted the restoration plan yesterday.
It's not in here. Right? It is ours or theirs? Okay.
They submitted.
Is it their exhibit or our exhibit? Our exhibit. We'll make it theirs. Yeah, so number 4 is gonna be a restoration plan.
Into a building, lower property. Pictures on that floor.
All right, we're good. You're good? Sam, you're good.
Okay, so in looking at Exhibit 2, the picture from the street view, so to speak, at the building, you can see that as late as this is taken in 2013, as late as 2013, prior to effectuating the conditions of the site plan and the Pine Barrens decision, you can see that there was a driveway, circular in size, coming around in front of the building with a couple of, few trees within that area and a mowed lawn, manicured. And in addition to that, if you look at Exhibit 1, you can see from an aerial view the detail of that driveway access together with parking that was on the prior site plan. The area that we seek to put the parking in is largely within the driveway area just south of the building, together with the parking stalls, and going just a little bit further to the, I'm going to say, west. I'm going to point myself. It's southeast, I think, actually. So, so any of the redeveloped area that we're looking to put the parking on will be in this particular area. Should also further be noted that this area currently has both drainage and the sanitary system in this particular area. And that has been pointed out to me by the engineer for the project site. So when you take, lastly, I'm sure that Chick will also cover this, at the end of the day, what we've done is we took the covenants in the prior approval and we limited our relief so that it would mirror the prior 2010 relief granted with regard to the amount of ultimate open space, preserved space on the site. It was 1.96 acres. After this project is hopefully granted and completed, the amount of acreage that will be within the preserved area will be 1.96 acres. So it will be essentially the same with the replanting, which I would also note that the covenants and the decisions from 2010 both point out that approximately 1.55 acres was to remain natural, which they have, and that the balance, which is I think 1.41, would be replanted, which is consistent with our plan. So for all of those reasons, I think that the application should be granted, and I'm going to defer to Chick to give a little bit more detail. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Good afternoon, everyone. For the record, my name is Chick Voorhees of Nelson Pope Voorhees. Offices in Melville, and our office prepared the application that's before you, and we've conducted extensive analysis with respect to the project, the compliance with the provisions for a core preservation area hardship, and that is all documented in our application, which has been submitted and is dated December 14th, 2022. That's good. All right, we're going to have Angela's help on this. Thank you. Sorry about that. All right. So just by way of background, I think you all know me. I've been doing environmental planning consulting on Long Island for 45 years. I did sit in the town of Brookhaven for a period of time, and I'm extremely familiar with this site, going back to my first days with the town of Brookhaven starting in 1982, which was only 3 years after this site was constructed. I did want to point out, and I thank Julie for noting that we did submit a restoration plan yesterday after our application that was submitted on December 14th. Sorry that it came in just before the hearing, but I do expect it'll be part of the record and taken into consideration. And I'm happy to
It's been marked as 4.
Exhibit 4.
Yeah, it's exhibit 4.
Thank you, John. Next slide. It's a 5-acre site, as you know. It's at the northwest corner of William Floyd and Research Road. The tax map is there. It is zoned L1 industrial. It's been that way for decades. The entire site is within the core preservation area, and the site has been historically developed, as Tim has mentioned. It's currently occupied, next slide, by the New York Cancer and Blood Specialists. They have a centralized facility here. It's for their executive, administrative, and support personnel offices. The building is about 46,000 square feet in size. It is 2-story. And there are 69,300 square feet of paved parking and driveways on the site currently. There's 1.4 acres of natural land on the property. And as I said, the commercial building has been there since 1979. Next. Tim went through some of this, so I don't need to dwell on it, but as was mentioned, built in 79, came in for a hardship in 1994. The core preservation area was defined in 1993 as part of the Article 57 boundaries, and that's really what began this situation. It was an industrial site, it was developed, and it was placed in the core. So I think we can understand what's happened historically, and we feel that that's important to the record. Next slide. As Tim said, and this image shows it, as well as the one that Tim submitted as an exhibit, up until about 2014, the area immediately south of the building was used for a kind of a circular driveway. It's a little tough to see on the image below, but I have other ones, and Julie has some in the staff report, and this presentation will be made part of your record. As Julie noted, we are proposing additional parking, but town code requires one space for 150 square feet. We know in the town of Brookhaven that is a very strict and in many cases excessive parking requirement. We also have a handle on how many cars are parked on the access road now during peak use of the facility, as well as cars that are parked at end caps that aren't marked parking stalls. We feel that that's a safety issue and that this proposed additional parking will alleviate that and address that demand. If this property were in the compatible growth area of the Pine Barrens, we'd be allowed 65% clearing. With the cleared and developed areas, we're at 60.8%. So we're about 4% under what would be allowed if this were in the compatible growth area. It's not an applicable standard here, but it is a benchmark, it's a reference point, and I think that that's important, that the site is not completely utilized by that standard.
Chip, could I ask a question?
Of course, yes.
If you built the additional parking, what percentage would it bring it up to? Approximately.
It would be the same. It would be 60.8% of the site
With the
developed.
additional parking?
Yes. That's our proposal. So we're under the 65% that would be allowed, and we have more than the open space that would be required if it were in the compatible growth area, and, because I don't want Julie to jump down my throat, assuming that the areas of natural revegetation are completed. So just to be very clear. So this hardship is submitted to you to improve the operations on the site. It does not impact natural Pine Barrens areas, as I'll testify to in a little more detail. And the activity is proposed in prior impacted areas. Next slide. This shows, a little tough to see, again, I'll be submitting this. This shows cars on the left parked next to the end caps for the rows of parking. That decreases the aisle width within some of the site. Next slide.
So that's indicative of the number of people that use the site every day?
It's intermittent. It may vary. There are days that there may be more intense activities, but these were, I would say, fairly typical. I drive by the site several times a week, and I've seen it similar to this. I've seen it with a little more in terms of cars parked on William Floyd Parkway, and I've seen it a little less. So kind of a typical condition.
So Chick, can I ask a question?
Yes.
I think it would be illuminating to find out what the average flow is on any given day in terms of car traffic. You bring up the point of safety issues because overflow is parking on William Floyd, which in effect is a violation. It's a violation on the part of those people who are engaged in their day-to-day work at the site. So coming into this site in 2022, these were constraints that were clearly known. And given the fact that New York Blood and Cancer Center has a couple of hundred sites across the island, they would seemingly have the resources to really offload some of the admin work they're doing here. So these are concerns, and I'm just interested to hear how you address them.
Some of that I'm going to defer to Tim after I'm done. If he has some information to share with respect to that, we can certainly look at the overflow that's necessary. That's something that can be quantified. As far as the operations of the business, my understanding is that it would be difficult for them to divert that flow to another site, but I can't speak in detail on the actual operations of the company. it really is kind of a practical situation where there is a need for additional parking that this will help to alleviate. And, people are kind of, reacting as best they can to get to work. So we do know that New York Cancer and Blood Specialists employs many people. It's an ongoing business. It's a successful business, and it's an important business. And our application is to make the operations work a little bit better and not impact the Pine Barrens. So I'm going to concentrate on the environmental aspects of it. And if there's someone on the team that can provide some additional input, we'll certainly get to that. But thanks for the question. Next. So the project would utilize existing revegetated area and the concrete walk area on the south side of the building. The parking expansion utilizes about 11,600 square feet of the land south of the building. The proposed parking is for 46 additional stalls. That includes 12 previously approved land bank stalls. Drainage to be installed for the impervious area. And we have Anthony Stancanelli here from Phronesis Engineering if there are more specific questions on the engineering plans. We're going to maintain and improve the naturalized areas of 0.57 acres to the south and east of the existing building. Next. These are just a series of slides that are available from Google Earth. This is 1994. The next is from 2004 to 2010. This does show the building, the expanded building. For the most part, I'm not sure if the second story appears. It might be in the later part of this period. It does include that circular drive that we've made reference to. Next. This is 2012. The circular drive is still there. Trees are out in this one, so it's a little tougher to read. And as I said, you'll have a better image when I submit. This is the image that Tim submitted as an exhibit that shows that 2012 condition. It actually is recorded in Google Earth or Google Maps when you go to Street View. The next one is 2013, and that basically shows, you can see the circular pattern. You can see the area that is not paved anymore, but it follows that circular pattern where the driveway was. And that area was intended to remain or be restored. Next slide is 2015 to present. Again, a little bit dark, but it's basically the existing condition on the site. Next. So our justification, we've covered some of this, but it's basically that the site has been used commercially since 1979, which predates the comprehensive land use plan and predates Article 57. The placement of the developed site, a previously existing developed site, into the CPA created the hardship, and that necessitated the prior relief as well as the current relief. The facility does need parking for ongoing operations, and the stalls will address the demand. We will achieve closer conformance to the town's parking requirements, but as I said, they tend to be quite excessive, if that's a good reference to use. We've found that to be true for other sites. The current parking causes safety concerns, visual concerns, and environmental impairment. There's headlights, there's activity in areas that aren't really intended for it, and obviously the need for emergency vehicles to enter the site would be of concern. The new parking internal to the site and near the building would not result in external impacts. There will be a remaining area of natural vegetation on William Floyd Parkway, and I have an image next that will show that, not quite yet. There's really no external impact, and we're going to supplement the natural vegetation when I present the landscape restoration plan. There will be no change in the site operations. In other words, there's no additional building, there won't be any additional activity or traffic. Those patterns are already established. And the expansion area has been disturbed previously. There's no natural areas of the site being impacted. There are several trees that are being impacted that I'll mention. Next. This is a picture, the one on the left is the north side of the building, and the one on the right is the east side of the building. And it shows areas where natural vegetation comes almost right up to the building. There are a few strips where we're proposing to expand that natural vegetation, but you can see that they've been a good steward of the environment. We didn't observe invasive species. This is native pine barrens right up to the building. And I just thought that was important, that, you know, the stewardship of the property, other than their situation due to operations, has been very good. Next image. So this is fairly readable. The green will be the restored areas. You can see up to the northwest a patch that will be heavily revegetated, a strip on the north side of the building, an area to the east of the building, and the larger area to the south of the building. And it's a little smaller, hard to see there, but we have a kind of a strip south of the land bank parking that will also be revegetated. This brings us up to the 1.96 acres. Next slide. These are the engineering plans that are part of the package. Obviously, you're not going to be able to read that, so just the kind of the polygons and the images show that on the engineering plans with exact calculations, those areas have been called out and are part of the restoration. That shows the title block from Furnesis Engineering and the plans that are pending in your application. Next. This is the exhibit from the engineering set that shows the revegetation areas and quantifies those as I have mentioned. Next. This is an inventory of existing trees on the property, and there are about 7 within the footprint of the parking, which is to the north of those patches of existing trees, about 7 trees that will be removed. I do want to tell you that based on the restoration plan, 37 trees will be replanted on the site. So we looked to do a significant restoration plan that would be successful, that would not promote invasive species becoming established on the property, and that would create a natural environment using the plantings from figure 5-2 of chapter 5 of the comprehensive land use plan. Next image. So this indicates those tree installations. We have a full table of all the species and numbers and spacing and size of plantings that is included with the restoration plan. The next image is the shrub and ground cover installation. That's all of those areas that I described before that were the green on the color plan. The next slide shows the list of plantings in tabular form with the common names, scientific names, size of containers, and number of plants. And there are literally, in addition to the 37 trees to be planted, there's over 1,000 shrubs and several thousands of plugs and containers that will establish ground cover vegetation on the property. Next slide. There was an item in the staff report that asked about natural heritage. We did check our files. There will be a natural heritage program letter forthcoming. But in the meantime, the environmental resource mapper identifies 2 species in association with the site, one being the northern long-eared bat. We're quite familiar with that, and that would mean that DEC involvement would be necessary, either through a no-take determination under Article 11 of the Environmental Conservation Law. We would have to either observe the time periods for clearing of trees due to northern long-eared bat, or perform such surveys as might be required by the DEC to conduct removal of those trees. And this would be a good candidate site actually for emergence surveys that would potentially permit clearing beyond that window. But we are fully aware of it and will comply with all DEC requirements. Also, the eastern spadefoot, which is a toad, was identified, and that's a species of special concern. They don't have any special protection, but we're not disturbing any habitat areas for that species. The natural woodlands will remain, and we're actually creating more natural habitat that would serve that species if it is present. So I don't think anything more will be learned with respect to natural heritage. This just goes through the staff report. Tim covered some of these, but we'll submit this. Basically, what will happen as far as the parking after this proposal is completed was question number one or comment, and the parking will serve the current and future needs. There's no new building expansion proposed. We do recognize the ownership purchase date, but when purchased, the facility was anticipated to have adequate parking, and the site operations within the existing building has increased the need, but there's, again, no change in the building. The site is currently a beneficial use for offices. Again, no expansion, and the parking is needed, as I said. Question 4 had to do with the increase in the intensity of use in the core. As I said before, the pattern of use is already established. The activity is there, and this will improve the operational conditions as well as the visual and environmental conditions on the property. There were prior covenants and restrictions, and we're indicating today that the current plan will comply with the 1.96 acres of natural area when the parking lot expansion is completed and the revegetation is installed pursuant to the plan. And our client has looked at the plan and has their landscape contractor reviewing it as well. So we're ready to be in the ground to perform that restoration work as soon as possible. It was noted, the next slide, page number 6, 2 prior hardships were granted. Tim Shea covered this, but it's redundant, but we know why we're here. It's a developed site that was put in the core. Also, the site has its unique qualities because of that. So I think it's important to recognize when a site is unique. And even with those 2 prior hardships, it shows that there have been difficulties since it was placed in the core. Comment or discussion item 7 in the staff report on page 5 of the staff report asked about Article 6 compliance. The engineering plans confirm that the Suffolk County Department of Health Services has already issued their approval, and that was based on the building. And I have an image that shows the Health Department approved plan as well as their stamp that indicates the transfer of development rights, as was explained by Julie Hargrave. Number 8 was potential visibility of the lot from CR 46. You saw that color image before. The parking is on the interior of the site. It's within previously paved areas and disturbed areas of the site. There will be natural vegetation remaining, as you saw before, and the additional screening for the restoration plan will further block visibility from the roadway. Number 9 was to submit a revegetation plan. I described that today. It's one of your exhibits, and I'm sure that will be reviewed in detail by staff, but we're confident in the ability of that plan to achieve a natural restoration. And number 10 had to do with Natural Heritage Program, and I covered that with respect to the northern long-eared bat and the eastern spadefoot. So this next image, as I said, is the Health Department approved plan. After the hearing today, I will submit electronically this presentation so you have it for the record, and I'll also submit this exact plan. The plan itself is on the right, and the left image is an enlargement of the stamp, which appears down to the lower right near the title block. And it basically shows that it was approved by the Health Department. No further review by Health Department is required. So just in very quick summary, next slide.
So Chick, before you move on, just out of curiosity,
I'm
so.
pretty much done, Dale, thanks.
Yes, that's great. So we're talking about 56,000 square feet, right? That's the total, and there's a flow assignment per, X amount of square feet, like 300 GPD or something to that effect. So what I'm just curious about.
Talking sanitary wastewater.
Sanitary waste.
Yes.
What are those numbers? I mean, you've told us innumerable times that you've been approved, but I've been looking through some of this. I'm looking at what the allowed sanitary flow is, and I'm just a little bit puzzled because it seems to be at odds with the total square footage. Can you just explain that?
Well, Tim mentioned it before that this is administrative offices, so it's not medical flow. Right. It would be 0.1 gallons per day per square foot. So the actual flow is 2,749 gallons per day. Not a huge amount. That's under 3,000 gallons on a 5-acre site.
And so what kind of system are they using at this point, do you know?
I'm quite certain it's a conventional system. So it was installed prior to any requirements for an IA system, but it does meet health department requirements. I'll submit that stamp plan for you, for your files. And that's it. This is just a summary, but I don't want to be too redundant because I really have covered all these items. So I really appreciate your attention. I can be available if you have any further questions.
Thank you, Chuck. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Well, I believe I posed a few
He's
concerns
there.
that
I don't think I heard any answers.
Mr. Shea was
Shea, you wanna
ostensibly going to
answer those
address. So just to recap.
Yes.
Your clients buy the property last year. They're a sizable operation. I'm sure they're exceedingly well managed. So they're looking at what the capacity is in terms of the number of staffers that they can put there. And then they're looking at this parking lot. So clearly, given the fact that they're very astute businessmen, they did the arithmetic and knew moving in that they didn't have adequate parking.
I would disagree with that.
I see, okay, that's
okay,
interesting.
so-
And what I'd like to also hear, because I didn't.
With the conclusion.
Yeah.
Because the business has grown so exponentially that by the time they got the contract and closed, then, of course, they're sitting there and going, okay, we got to figure out how to make this all work. So it was not with the intention of having a parking issue to build this. This was, or to purchase this. This was supposed to be a centralized home with adequate parking facilities that they felt would be good for the business. And if I may, I think I can maybe help with the mitigation that we've been discussing with the client, both on-site mitigation and off-site mitigation, that we think is going to help resolve the parking issue. But, you know, we still need the additional parking, and those would be two things that they have been discussing and trying to put into place. One is they are negotiating with, to purchase another property that is already built, that is not in the Pine Barrens core. In fact, I think it's not in the Pine Barrens at all. Somewhat in the vicinity, but to the south, to alleviate some of the employment issues. The other thing that they are doing, and they're trying to put in place currently, is a shifting, putting in different shifts so that not everybody's there at the exact same time, so that, we don't have people there from 9 to 5 every day, and that they're going to try and do some overlapping shifting in order to alleviate the parking problem. We think between the two of those mitigation factors, that the parking that is provided will be more than adequate, and we're trying to fix the situation.
Tim, what is the current number of parking spaces there?
Anthony has that on the plan in front of him.
And along
So
with
many
that,
facts,
Mr. Shea had asked about the typical daily traffic, because that again gets down to, what you have, what you're trying to accommodate, and I'm not clear on those numbers.
I would have to take a deeper dive into that. I know that it's not consistent every single day. There are certain days, on Mondays and Tuesdays in particular, where they have staff meetings and certain training sessions. That seems to be the days that are at a peak. Other days are less. So again, we're trying to work within the operation itself to try and, mitigate that and to make that parking issue go away.
Again, what is the current number of parking spaces?
165.
165.
Okay,
And-
just 1 second. Just let the record reflect that 350, Janice left the hearing and Marty Shea replaced her for the hearing. And Mr. Shea was present throughout the hearing and observed and participated in all of the proceedings. Thank you. Sorry.
165. And you're looking for how many more parking spaces to be approved?
It would be 31 in the area in front of the building, and the 12 land bank spaces that were previously approved would be, so it would end up at 199 total.
So you're looking for about 35 more spaces.
46 with 15 being land bank that are constructed. 31 new spaces on the plan.
And do you know how many people work in the building now?
I think it fluctuates between certain days.
Fluctuates between
Give me 1 second.
that, what number and
Yes.
what number?
I mean, they haven't even done a traffic study. No, but,
Unfortunately, Supervisor Romaine, I don't have that number handy, but we can get it for you.
And you looked at a, I assume, a traffic study for this location?
Well, we know what the problem has been, a parking demand, and it's been so dramatic and quick to come upon us that we immediately started putting together plans in order to deal with this issue. And we said to the client from the beginning that at the end of the day, if there's any chance of success of this application happening, we have to adhere to the 1.96 natural area that was on the prior approvals. And that has been our benchmark in trying to design the site. And also to limit any disturbance to areas that have previously been disturbed. Those were our two, from the beginning, this is your limitations if you have any chance at success.
Thank you, Mr.
And they use the site every day, correct?
They do use the site 5 days a week. Do they weekends at all?
Occasional training.
Occasional on weekends, but normally it's Monday to Friday.
And Saturday use too. So there's use of the building 5 days a week and occasionally on a Saturday.
It would appear so, yes. But I would have think that Saturday wouldn't be as crowded as the other days of the week.
Tim, are they currently using the land bank's parking spots for
Yes.
parking?
Yes.
You indicated that even if the additional parking spaces are built, there would still be a deficiency of 107 parking spaces
Well, no,
as per town code.
Julie indicated that under the town code, we would still be deficient, but we would be mitigating the fact that we were at half of what is required, and now we'll be at 2/3 of what is required. We think that doing that together with changing operational procedures and buying the other property, that the 199 stalls will be adequate for the use.
So you don't think that large of a deficiency is likely to result in additional issues in terms of insufficient parking in the years ahead?
No, because we're addressing it through other means to make sure that the 199 stalls will meet our needs. By, again, looking at other properties and changing operations on the site.
Are they under contract to buy the other site?
Not at this time, they're negotiating a contract. I'm not representing them on that particular transaction.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Shea.
I want to thank you all.
Ms. Murray. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to comment on this public hearing? Madam Clerk, Anna, please just introduce yourself for the record.
Nina Lenhart, Long Island Pine Barrens Society. I don't have anything new to add, but I think the questions that have been raised from the time that Ms. Hargraves presented, and including what Mr. Shea had to say, and the questions of the commissioners, really pinpoints that the issues that surround this property were known from the beginning. Now, we're not supposed to consider that there were hardship waivers previously, but that should have indicated something to the applicant that there were issues here. And this property was included in the core even though it was developed for obvious reasons. It's in a very critical area and probably should have never been developed. But that being said, once 1993 came around, it was in the core, and we have to respect all that. Now, the idea that we're going to have 45 more spots and that's going to be enough, do we have any idea what the overflow is now? How much is it each day? Is it 45? Is it 60? What is it? That number hasn't been addressed. And Mr. Shea was very clear in saying that when there is a business, it keeps growing. So what is to say, as Marty Shea indicated, that we won't hear this. No, there aren't any plans now, but what happens if this business grows? Are they going to come back again and look for more spots? You know, so where does this end? What do we do? And the applicant should have been aware because this property has been well documented. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Go ahead, Dick, come on up.
What you're doing is exactly what you said you wouldn't do. We listened, we warned, we expressed our anxieties about whether or not this would be the seriousness and the importance of the project, that it be controlled, that what we were going to see, what we were going to witness, what we were going to support was limited. And now we're saying, except otherwise. And it's of serious concern because it happens over and over again where we are told by people in government, this is going to be protective. And it isn't. And it's extremely concerning because these things were asked about and addressed. We were concerned, very, very disturbed, warned that there would be problems because rarely does the government meet its requirements and meet its responsibility, and it didn't do it here again. So, sorry, it just doesn't work out where you say, we're not going to do something and then go out and do it, and I say you'll do it again.
Thank you, Mr. Amper. Okay, is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to address us on this public hearing? Seeing none, I think we'll get a motion to close.
I would close the hearing and leave the record of comments for a week, 2 weeks at most. There's a decision deadline in April, so if we have a 2-week comment period, everything could be brought back to the commission.
Make a motion, close the hearing, and leave open for written comments for the next 14 days, calendar days.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Romaine and seconded by Mr. Dale.